Episode 190 of the HHH Racing Podcast is brought in part by Stable Duel.
You've picked your power forward. Your all-star receiver keeps scoring. Now it's time to race across the finish line and put even more points on the board. Download the Stable Duel app and get in on the thrill of horse racing. Choose your horses, your jockeys, your track, and win thousands in daily games competing against other players. Move up the annual leaderboard and bring home real cash prizes daily. Get in the game with Stable Duel. Play, race, win.
And now let's start episode 190 of the HHH Racing Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 190 of the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Pete Visco. That smiling guy next to me is our co-host, Howard Kravitz. We just came off of a very exciting, very argumentative, very high comment related podcast about some of the, I would say, some of the suspicious or not suspicious DQs and not DQs over the weekend. Howard, what'd you think of that one? Everybody should, if you're listening now to this one, go back, episode 189. Howard, what'd you think of that one? Pretty lively, huh?
Yeah, episode 189 is one for the memory books. We had some very strong opinions. Welcome to the show, everyone, tonight. Thanks for joining us. Very excited about our guest that we're going to have, Pete. But yeah, we brought out the rule book. We talked in detail. And listen, everyone's got a strong opinion. Paul, I heard, not a big fan of the Kentucky Stewards. But anyway, Kentucky Stewards, if you're listening, you're still welcome on the show. That's just Paul's opinion. But it's real tough, Pete. I mean, you can go either way. There's a lot of discretion. There's a lot of objectivity. I mean, it's not easy to make these decisions.
Well, and then what we learned from that was in the comments between us, there's never a right or wrong answer. It's always gray. And that's what, it's usually, did I have the ticket that lost or did I have the ticket that won? Sometimes that sways us a bit. And I see Nick Feldman's back with us. So he was on that one commenting a ton. Thanks for joining us again, Nick. We appreciate it. So today we're going to talk about, there were a ton. This was basically the last big weekend. It's pretty much the last weekend. There's two European Breeders' Cup winning you're in races this upcoming weekend. But this was the last big Breeders' Cup prep and winning you're in races. So we have a ton of races to go over. So we're going to talk about those. We have a fantastic guest, Matthew DeSantis. Don't call him Midnight Maddie. It'll get him mad. But Matthew DeSantis from the Trust the Profits podcast. And we're going to talk to him a little bit. And we'll talk to him about his show and where you can find it and all that. But we're going to get into a bunch of races. But let's knock out a couple of the administrative items real quick. If you're watching this on YouTube, please definitely subscribe. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because then you'll know when all our podcasts are coming. Hit the like button. That tells YouTube and all the other people that this is an awesome podcast that you like to watch and listen to. And hit that notification bell, especially around Breeders' Cup time. We're not going to just be doing, I assume, Howard, we haven't talked schedule. I assume we won't just be doing our normal Tuesday, Thursdays. We'll have some ad hocs. No. So if you want to know when they're coming, hit that notification bell and you'll be notified when our other podcasts are coming up. As Howard had a comment up there before, if you listen to the 5, huh?
We have 5 podcasts.
Five podcasts from Breeders' Cup. Yeah. I need to get over this sinus infection so my throat doesn't hurt so much. So if you're an audio listener, Apple, Spotify, Anchor, please rate, subscribe, review. That we appreciate that as well. Power picks, Howard, you want to give a quick summation of the power picks and just how they work now? There was a little bit of a change.
Yeah, real quick. Our power picks are spot plays, price plays. We have stats on there as well. We give out pick 4, pick 5, ABC grids. Pete, you had a nice exacta from the power picks this weekend at Santa Anita, correct?
I had a nice exacta on the power picks, and I had a pick 5, an A, 4 A's and a C pick 5 that hit. It didn't pay much, but it would have won you a little bit of money. It's better than what happened to my ticket, which was ripping it up.
Well, if you're not familiar with the Power Picks, look below the video player. Now is the time. It's a 1-month subscription. If you sign up right now, you get it through the Breeders' Cup, Pete. So what are people waiting for? Right now is the time to do it. It's only $16 for the entire month. You get it every Saturday. It's $4 a Saturday, Pete, and you can make that up with one of the 20 different opinions we have on there real easily. It's been very successful, almost a $2.40 ROI right now. Anyway, people can look below or go onto the website, right, Pete? That's a great place to look.
Yeah, so a couple of places. You can go below the video player, and there's a link to Patreon. Also, if you go to our website, hhhracingpodcast.com, nice and simple, there's links on there. And there's also, as we always say, there's examples of the Power Picks, so you can see what you're getting yourself into. See if you like it first. You don't have to just jump in. You can review a couple, and then there's at least 15 examples on there, so you can take a look at those. So please do that, and please subscribe, especially with Breeders' Cup coming. And yes, welcome. We have two, and we announced, I think, was that last week, Howard, if I remember correctly, we announced two exciting new sponsors, Hawthorne Racecourse, which is fantastic. And we've done a couple of events with, and Howard's participated, and our other contributor, Kyle Roscoe's participated in, and then Stable Duel, who you just saw that fantastic ad, which made me want to just jump into one tonight if there was one going. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But thank you to those two exciting new sponsors. So I guess
we got one more comment, Pete, from
Nick
go
ahead.
Who was on the first. Just thank you, Nick. That's really appreciate.
Thank you,
we
Nick.
Really appreciate the kind thoughts. We worked very hard on the show here, Nick. I did a lot of research for the last show where we talked about DQs because we want to be informed. If we give you can give bad opinions, but they need to be informed bad opinions. And so we want to make sure whether they're good or bad opinions, according to what you think, they are informed. We try very hard to do that. So,
and Howard and I could talk for forever, but it's nice to hear. So it's nice to have some other people jump in every once in a while. So, all right, well, let's stop fooling around. Let's get to our guest from the Trust the Profits. That's tough to say. Trust the Profits podcast. We have Matthew DeSantis. Let's bring him on in. Hey, Matthew, how's it going, man?
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for having me. Really great to be here tonight, and excited to talk to you about what was just an absolutely jam-packed and full weekend of Breeders' Cup winning year-end races. And, I saw Donna Brothers was posting, I think on Instagram or maybe Twitter, her like minute-by-minute lineup of the whole weekend. And it felt like you were just constantly having to switch between Keeneland and Santa Anita and BAQ and kind of keep ping-ponging back and forth. But it was so much fun, a lot of great racing.
I agree 100%. Howard, you we know Matthew. We're going to talk later in the show about Trust the Profits, the podcast. We're going to get into a little bit more then. We're going to save it a little bit closer to the end. Right now, we're just going to dive into some stuff. First thing we want to. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Howard.
We're going to do Stable Duel first. Sorry, I thought you were going to say dive into the races. I apologize.
I was not. See, you always think you know. You never know what's going on up here, my friend. You never know what's going on up here. Thank you for the segue. Yes, we are going to jump into Stable Duel as Matthew notes on his Twitter page, and obviously Howard and I like to do Stable Duel a lot. They're a sponsor now, especially, so we'll be talking about them a lot more going forward. And Matthew, I saw on your Twitter page that you're an avid, as you noted it,
yes,
Stable Duel player. What got you into it? What do you like about it? Why don't you give a quick little summary of that?
Yeah, I got into it just a little over a year ago, actually a year ago at Charlestown for the Charlestown Classic. It's where I met Bree Mott, who works at Stable Duel, and it's just a really fun. I love fantasy sports, and it just combines your love of fantasy sports, if anybody plays fantasy football, basketball, what have you, with kind of horse racing. And so it's a great way, I find it to be a really great way to play races, particularly during the weekday, and not have to worry about building a ticket necessarily, not having to worry about, having to keep up with every single race. I work a pretty traditional 9-to-5 job. I can't be paying attention to the fourth race at Parks on a Monday. Okay. I might be in a meeting then. So it's really nice to be able to kind of set your stable, and what you do is you have a salary cap. You have a $50,000 salary cap. Every horse costs a certain amount of money based upon their morning line odds. So they're set and stable in that regard. And then you have to select what your opinion is of the 10 best horses to use in that stable. You accumulate points for finishing first, second, third, fourth, and even fifth. You lose points based upon the number of lengths your horse was defeated by, 6 or worse. And so it's a really fun way to play races for a relatively small amount of money. You can play these contests for free in some cases, $2, $5, $10. They absolutely have bigger money contests. But if you're just somebody who likes to dabble in horse racing, and you're a beginner, honestly, it's a really nice way of just getting your feet wet in the sport and playing in pretty low risk environments and really nice payouts as well.
Yeah, and we actually had Bree on a couple weeks ago on the show as well, and we sort of talked through the mechanics of it. But I agree with you. The one thing I do like is you could play a full card, and you could almost experience the highs and lows of a full card for $5, $10, even $50, which is maybe a lot less than you would spend if you were betting all those races individually. So just from that perspective, if your bankroll isn't as high, or you just don't feel like betting a lot one weekend, you get into this, you enjoy it you enjoy the whole day's worth of racing. And like you said, hopefully you can actually cash a pretty big payout for a little bit of investment. Howard, I know
we've got
Howard.
a comment from Penn State Scott. This is for you specifically there, Matthew, the Lord of Fairfax. Wow, I think you have to tell some more about that, Matthew.
That is very kind of Scott, and I will gladly take that title. I do live in Fairfax, Virginia, and so I'm up here in Northern Virginia, and I have to laugh. Scott, Penn State Scott. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, so appreciate Scott's comment there. But yeah, one of the things that I lived in Florida for 7 years. I went to grad school at the University of Florida. I worked down there for a little while, and when I do show my ID to people and things like that, they're like, "Oh, are you related to?" No, I'm not related to the governor. And I did teach political science for 15 years, but yeah, no relation. And but it's funny how my last name has gone from something people struggle to pronounce to everybody knows exactly how to pronounce it right away. So it's I still get used to seeing my last name, which was not a particularly common one, pop up on news feeds a lot, and that's kind of a surreal feeling to get.
Seems like it might only get worse, unfortunately, for you in the next couple of years.
Yeah, so. He's gonna be very popular over the next few years. I have a feeling. Yeah, you're right.
Midnight Maddie might be becoming more appealing and appealing than you
always
thought it might be.
Yeah, always happier to talk about. Think about the legacy of Midnight Bourbon.
Bourbon, yes,
one of my favorite horses. So
thumbs up to the educators, as you know, Matthew. I'm a high school teacher, so thumbs up. I do want to show one new feature, Pete.
Go ahead, please.
We need one more minute here for Stable Duel. We're going to do a Stable Duel tip of the day every Tuesday, and as you know, Matthew, and I've been playing. I think I played my 98th contest this weekend. By the way, I was awful. Keeneland kicked my butt.
Keeneland was tough. Yeah,
I'll just rarely admit it. As you know, the scores were much lower than normal. Keeneland was very tough this weekend. But there is a tip, and I'd like you to comment on this, Matthew, and I'm sure you're going to agree with this statement. It's on the bottom of the screen. My Howard's Stable Duel tip of the day is if you're going to play bigger price horses, try to do it in fields that have smaller sizes. And the reason I say that, Matthew, is because if you have a 15-1 shot in a 8-horse field, there's a better chance of that horse finishing, 3rd, 4th, 5th than in a 12-horse field. So again, it very much depends, of course, on the PPs, and I'm not really talking about handicapping. I'm just talking in general. If you're going to play a bigger price horse, try to find it in the smaller fields, which is not easy because naturally, of course, Matthew, the smaller the field, the lower the odds are going to be.
Right. And that's a very good tip. And I think one of the things I typically do stay away from is spending up, $8,000-$9,000 on these 12-horse fields, and particularly when you look at turf racing, I almost always stay away from favorites in turf racing because you can often find horses that will run at the pace late and will get in that top 4, top 5, who will get you some positive points for, a fraction of the cost. I mean, this past weekend was a great example. Set Piece, I think, was only going to cost you $500 on Stable Duel. Ran up and got a piece of 4th place in the one in the Turf Classic. So yeah, I mean, why would you spend? I mean, I spent some money on Ivar, but even that was only $5,000. So and I got 2nd and 4th, and so it was I wasn't trying to necessarily chase the winners. So absolutely agreed that in those smaller fields, there's less variability. So going after those big priced horses makes sense.
The stable duel play of the day this weekend was Knock Your Socks Off at 30
Oh,
on
yeah.
Friday.
Absolutely.
But everyone knew that horse, and we love Nick Tamro. He's been on the show, but he was a little bit off on that one. But anyway,
Yeah, I
go
wonder
ahead,
if it was supposed to be 3-1. I mean, I wonder if it was a misprint
You
because
think a typo could get that far through the process? Huh?
I don't know. I mean, I know some people. I mean, it wasn't the Cheryl Spate 50-1, but it was off for sure. Readily corrected by the betting public.
Yes, but so for Trish, I think asked if we're going to be playing stables this weekend at Keeneland. So what we're going to do, we'll probably on our shows, and we talked about it on our Saturday live show. Like when we have a live show, maybe we'll go through our stables and we can. The only problem is you don't want to give it out in advance because then other people can play in the same contest with you and just piggyback your picks, and then you wind up tying for 57th instead of being 57th on your own, like I think some of us were maybe this past weekend. All right. Well, let's jump into the races because we have a ton. Like Matthew said earlier, this was a huge weekend. Last Breeders' Cup prep and winning your in races here in the U.S. So the one we're going to start, we're going to do it a little bit different this week. We're going to actually go by Breeders' Cup division as opposed to maybe by track or by chronological order. So we're going to start with the Breeders' Cup distaff, and Howard's going to bring up PPs or replays as needed. So the Breeders' Cup distaff, we had two that right now, the two leading choices as far as when we talk about odds checkers a lot on here, Matthew. So we'll just, we'll quote the odds from there since they're generally readily available and easily accessible. So right now we have Nest, who we see right here. And I don't know if we need to dive too much into the race itself because it was really a glorified workout. But Matthew, what are your thoughts on either the race or just Nest in general and how she sort of is coming into a potential matchup with Malathot and the other older females in the distaff?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you couldn't have asked for better tune-ups. I mean, both Malathot and Nest looked the part. I thought that was just great to see. I mean, you want to see these horses come in peak condition. You don't want to see anybody, we could talk about what we saw from Life is Good last time out, potentially in the Whitney. You don't want to see something like that. You want to see these horses fire. Nest has just progressed so beautifully to the point where, honestly, now you almost feel befuddled how she lost the Kentucky Oaks. I mean, that she's just been so dominant since that race.
Yeah.
And her progression from 2 to 3 has just been stunning to see how Pletcher has brought her along. And so I'm a huge fan of Nest. And she's been one that I was maybe a little late to, but have just been so impressed by. She runs her race no matter what happens. She can make whatever trip she needs. She can be in the front. She can be mid-pack. She can be further back. I like that a lot. That sort of versatility is so important for the Breeders' Cup because you never know what type of pace and race setup you're going to get at Keeneland.
No, I agree. I think her versatility maybe is what gives her the jump on some of the other top choices because Malathot, is probably be coming from a little further back, Clairiere, and we'll talk about them in a minute. Howard, I don't think we need to bring you having some trouble.
Of course. I'm having Matthew. I never have internet or video issues. Of course, you're the lucky person.
Well, anyway, lucky for you, this was a blowout. I mean, this just
I don't think we need to watch Nest anyway. Yeah,
this might be happening all show long, so we might just have to talk through stuff, which
that's
wouldn't be
okay.
the worst thing in the world. But we can show the charts, obviously. Anyway. Nest.
Go ahead, Howard. What your thoughts on Nest? I mean, not much this race. Again, it was a glorified workout, but just in general coming in.
My thoughts on Nest overall is I will be trying to beat her at the Breeders' Cup.
Okay.
She's very good. I love Nest. I got no problem with Nest. Guys, her figs are no better than Malathot, no better than Clairiere. It's a very deep distaff field. Nest is going to be a horrible 8-5 in my opinion. She can win. Matthew, I'm playing in the BCBC this year for the second time. I will not be going all in or anything crazy on that. Most contentious race of the entire weekend, if not from a numbers standpoint, from the top of the top are really good. And as good as Nest is, I don't see any reason why she should be, in my opinion, value line for me to be like 3-1, 7-2, and she's gonna be 8-5. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and right now we actually have her at 8-5, and Malathot is second choice at 7-2, and then or close around that, and then Society and Search Results. So there should be if Society and Search Results go, at least there should be some speed that Ness can sit off, Malathat can sit off, but we'll get to that in a second. Let's go to the other race, where Malathat sort of won pretty convincingly, and I think Matthew, you sort of alluded to this, where since she's put the blinkers on, she put the blinkers on 3 races ago. She lost to, I think that was Clairiere 3 races ago, but then has run pretty well, been a little bit maybe closer, a little bit more involved, and a little bit more focused down the lane, where her struggles were she was maybe a little bit of a grinder. What'd you think of her performance this week? I mean, again, that field maybe didn't come up super strong either, especially with Latruska sort of being on the downslope. Yeah,
on the downslope. But, I think anytime you have a horse like Malathat that is a deep closer and you have a smaller field, it was still very, very impressive to watch her win this race and win it so with ease. And so I think that was, something that in smaller fields, sometimes those deep closers are a little closer to the lead than they normally like to be. And so I thought very, very impressive effort. This was, the thing is, looking at the PPs of Malathat, she just doesn't run a bad race. I mean, she just is so consistent from race in, race out. So all have a ton of respect for her. Obviously, the job Todd has done getting her ready as well. Just so impressive. But yeah, it was a little sad to see Latruska, clearly on the downside, of her career. And when she couldn't even really break to the lead the way that she normally does, you just thought, man, if she lost a step up front, then she really is going to struggle at this distance against some of the others. So, I like Nick's take though.
There you go. So Nick, for the listeners, Nick Feldman, one of our viewers, Malathat will be on 0 tickets. Nest is a borderline single, but Society and Search Results might be first runs into the stretch. I agree. I do think Nest, like you said, Matthew, she works her trips out, and she always works her trip out, and that's a benefit because again, she could get the jump on Malathat. And again, I'm a we haven't talked, but I'm a Clairiere fan. She's one of my favorites. I love her, and whatever happened in that last one, I'm hoping was just an aberration, and now she's going to come back and potentially be a little bit of a higher price. I don't think she's going to be too high because I think the field is sort of thinning a bit, unfortunately, but I still like her coming back.
I'm a huge Clairiere fan as well. It's funny you say that. I love that horse. And it turned out Asmussen said she scraped her tongue in the gate right before the race last time out. And he goes, I don't know if that was what caused the poor effort, but she looked like she turned the corner and kind of turned the tables on Malathat there mid-season and was getting the better. Yeah. Exactly. It was getting the better of Malathat. And again, you think about this. Now, I don't know what they're going to do with Latruska, if they're going to run her in the distaff or not. But you have Society, you have Search Results. There's going to be pace up front. The race sets up nicely for Malathat and Clairiere to just close on a hot pace. So I like Clairiere a lot, and you're going to get a price on her, which I'm even bigger fan of.
So. I like that. Howard, I know real quick before we move on to the next one, I know your thoughts on Latruska. I think you mentioned on Twitter that you thought she's sort of done everything she needs to do. No point in even taking her another step in the Breeders' Cup the way she's running. What do you think?
I don't understand why they would go to the Breeders' Cup. I mean, let the horse retire. She owes them absolutely nothing. She's been unbelievable. She has no business being in the race. I have to be honest. And guys, even if she goes, I got to tell you, Pete, and I haven't really said this publicly yet. I'm more and more getting interested in Society. This is the now horse. You mentioned the Search Results, Matthew, with the early speed. I don't think Search Results is going to be, again, we got plenty of weeks to talk about this, so we're going to move on. But Search Results to me would be like sitting off. I don't think Search Results would be like pressing hard because they know Search Results has distance limitations to me a little bit. I can see Society like getting a great post, like getting like a 23-2, like 47-4, 47-3, and shocking the hell out of people. I want to see how this horse works over the track, Matthew. But as of this very moment, my sort of longer shot play would be Society.
And when in doubt, she's third choice, I think, right? Oh, sorry, Matthew. So she's third choice, so she's getting. Yeah, sorry. Okay. Go ahead, Matthew.
Wow.
No, I was going to say, when in doubt, bet a gun runner. I mean, I was there at Pennsylvania Derby Day for her cotillion effort, and that was the most impressive effort I actually saw that day. I mean, she just blew the barn doors off of everybody else that was there. And I remember watching her. She was going around the third turn, and I turned to my friend and I said, is this Secretariat? Like, are we just, she was just pulling away and just opening up. And
whoa, wait a minute.
I know that, but like,
but it was the S word. I thought you were going to say she's white line or something.
No. But it was an impressive effort. It was an impressive demonstration of how you can use early speed to just really decimate a field. And just
Yeah.
instead of trying to strangle that horse back and save something, let that horse run and just open up 6 lengths on the field and then let everybody try to come catch you.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's move on. Excuse me. Sorry, everybody. I have a sinus infection that I'm still dealing with. So a little bit of the nose, a little bit of the scratchy throat. So if you hear that I apologize. So the next section we're going to go to, the next Breeders' Cup race, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. We saw a couple interesting races, and we actually talked about one on our DQ podcast earlier and had some disagreements as to what should have happened in that race. But we have to start the 8th at Santa Anita on Saturday, the American Pharaoh, Cave Rock for Bob Baffert. This horse just looks incredible. He's done absolutely nothing wrong. He pretty much decimated this field as well. Matthew, thoughts on Cave Rock in this race or just overall as a Breeders' Cup horse? And then obviously we always like to look forward to potential Derby down the road.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Baffert superfecta with
yes.
with Cave Rock, National Treasure, Hijazi, and Gandolfini running in the top 4. Cave Rock was so impressive. I mean, the Arrogate line up top. What is interesting to me, though, about 2 of the 3 Baffert runners, or 2 of the 4, I guess I should say, Cave Rock and Hijazi, underneath, they are really pure sprinters. If you look at their dams have not really produced many dirt route winners. They've not, they themselves were pure sprinters as well. Now, up top, they have the great classic influences. Cave Rock has Arrogate, Hijazi has Bernardini, but National Treasure, who has Curlin up top, is actually the one who has the most kind of distance from a standpoint of the dam underneath. So it's just interesting. I think for a mile and a 16th, I think Cave Rock is absolutely dominant, looked just the part, reeled off a 104 Beyer speed figure, which is now 2 out of 3 times breaking that 100 barrier. But I do wonder, moving on down the road, whether or not there's some distance limitations with Cave Rock when we talk about stretching out to a mile and a quarter or beyond that when you're running in the Triple Crown.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely get to that. But at least, like you said, for the mile and a 16th, I don't see any troubles. Howard, your thoughts on Cave Rock quickly?
First, I want to apologize to everyone because this is the first time literally in 190 shows that I'm having issues with the internet and the video. So we're not going to be showing any video replays tonight. Go watch on YouTube or Naira's their YouTube channel. There's a million ways you can find it.
Actually, real quick for the viewers, the Breeders' Cup, they have videos all in one page for all of the Breeders' Cup winning you're in. So you're not getting the other preps, but you get all the Breeders' Cup winning you're in's video straight through. So that's a good resource. Sorry, Howard, go ahead.
No, I'm gonna actually. By the way, it's my computer. It's not the websites because I've tried a few different websites now, and for some reason.
No, don't worry about it. Let's.
But anyway, a cave rock will be.
We'll take a guess because we have what it is now. So
we'll be 4 to 5, Matthew. I say.
Okay.
And depending on the post and who else is in the race, I might take a swing against. He's really good, obviously. He's also been on the West Coast for 3 races. He's never shipped. He's never raced at Keeneland. And Bob Baffert's not run a lot of horses at Keeneland. And I really like what Loggins did on Saturday, Matthew. I know he lost, but he took all the pace pressure, was really good. I can see a scenario where K-Rock goes to the lead and Loggins is sitting off and might go by in the stretch. I think Loggins is very good. Of course, we got a long time to talk about this race. K-Rock is very good. I'm going to say he might be slightly overrated right now, but he's very talented.
Well, and just from an odds perspective, we have Cave Rock at 5 to 4, and the horses we're going to talk about next in the Breeders' Futurity, Howard, if you want to bring it up, the Keeneland 9th. The winner was Forte. Sure. Forte and the aforementioned Loggins are co-second choices right now at 6 to 1. And actually, Matthew, National Treasure is 9 to 1 right now so there's some horses in here that I think you can, or even if you like. I mean, I know I had the Cave Rock National Treasure. I had won a 4 out of 5 and had like $24 and just bet a straight exacta Forte or Cave Rock National Treasure, which actually paid nice. So if you're going to get a couple Bafferts on top, that's never a bad thing with the juveniles on dirt for sure.
Absolutely. But no, this race, the futurity was something else. I mean, the way Loggins, I agree with Howard, the way Loggins kicked in, and Loggins, by the way, was my top pick going into the race. I just was enamored with this horse. Brad Cox gets these juveniles ready. I just felt like I was just so impressed with that maiden victory. And then Loggins down the stretch, I mean, the way he dug back in and just would not let Forte go. I just wanted to see them keep racing. Honestly, I wanted that to go another half furlong or so, because those two are just so impressive. Forte, I was a little skeptical about because of the sealed track last time out. You just don't know what sort of impact that has on speed figures, but obviously was able to back up the previous 92 with another 92. So some consistency there. But again, the sloppy track up in New York last time out was always a little bit of a question mark, but Loggins was so impressive there. Definitely like this horse, just such a young horse. And on big days, I tend to like going with Brad Cox horses a lot. And I just think Florent Giroux is the perfect jockey for this horse as well.
Yeah, 100%. Anyone else you want to talk about out of here, Howard? Those were the only ones. I mean, I think the top two were the only ones that are a real threat to make any real noise in the Breeders' Cup. Maybe some others. I know you and I like Lost Ark, who didn't have the best of trips, and you too, Matthew.
Yeah, I like that horse as well. Yeah.
That was my top choice. No, not really. Loggins might be better next year. We'll see, but I think he's really good. Matthew, do you sort of feel like Loggins 91 buyer is almost as good as Cave Rock's 102 in a weird way, just because the way these races were run? I mean, why can't Loggins step up and get a near 100 buyer in the Breeders' Cup, and based on circumstances, maybe Cave Rock take a small step back? I mean, everyone's like anointing Cave Rock as the next year's Derby winner. I think that's a bit premature, isn't it?
That feels very premature. I think Cave Rock is very talented, but for all the reasons you said, Santa Anita tends to run fast. If you watch that race, I mean, it honestly felt like the Baffert horses were like escorting Cave Rock around the track. I mean, there was no pressure on Cave Rock. No. Now, Cave Rock cracked off some incredible fractions. I mean, he was going fast as well. It wasn't like this was a New York turf race. And
the track was fast, though, on Saturday.
That's the thing. Is Santa Anita always has a fast track. Keeneland a little bit slower. So I do think that, Loggins was putting out that 22:46 opening quarter and half, and was contested the whole way around. I mean, just had pressure on him the whole time. And so I was, like I said, so impressed by Loggins. I'd absolutely take that 6-1. And I have a feeling that might even float up a little bit more by the time we get there. Because to Howard's point, I think Cave Rock's going to get over bet, and everybody else's price will get floated. Hold
on. I got to make a stop to the bank. I'll be right back. I think it's a pretty talented crop overall, man.
It is.
This 2-year crop.
And I think that this 2-year crop, unlike last year's, has some staying power. I think we're going to see a lot of these names as 3-year-olds, unlike last year's Juvenile, which might be one of the weakest in history.
I'm saying last year's Juvenile wasn't good. Is my Command Performance? Is he still running?
Performance? Did
was my future.
Did he break his maiden
that
yet?
Horse in the future, Matthew.
Has he broken his maiden? I think he did.
Amazingly, he did, and then he won next time out too. He won in the loud, so it was crazy.
Easy,
but yeah, he just
easy
needed to get
over
the winner's
there.
Breeders' Cup Classic next year. I'm feeling it. Let's put the wager in now. All right, let's move on real quick. We're going to talk real quick about it wasn't a Breeders' Cup winning you're in, but the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic at Aqueduct. Warlike Goddess facing off against the boys. It seems like doing what she likes to do, go longer and pointing to the Breeders' Cup turf instead of the filly and mare turf, which I think everyone was like the worst kept secret. I think everyone thought that's where she would go and that's where she belonged. But here she finally was able to prove it. She got a little bit of pace set up by my Melvin, didn't cut, the normal 150 fractions or whatever Warlike Goddess was used to running into. And she made it look pretty easy. Matthew, what do you think of her and her chances coming back in the turf?
Well, I definitely I love Bill Mott as a trainer, and I'm rooting for Warlike Goddess to do well. The fact that a lot of Euros are probably not going to be shipping over is actually beneficial, I think, to her, that might end up being a little bit of a weaker Breeders' Cup turf field because of the lack of some of the Europeans. But she just got the right trip. I mean, the last time out, a lot of people were critical of Rosario, but she just never looked comfortable that whole trip. I mean, it just at no point did she get into her stride. And she was just kind of like on the heels and inside. It just wasn't good. This time around, got her outside, kept her out of trouble, kept her closer to the pace. It just was a great ride. And she showed her class being able to beat the boys on the kind of the rest of the New York turf marathoners. And so definitely like her chances here. And I don't think she'll get bet down too much. And I think she's like I said, a very, very good horse. And that 1.5 miles is absolutely kind of hits her right between the eyes. And it's going to be better than the filly and mare turf, which is going to be 1 1.3 miles. And even Mott had said this is too short for her, basically.
Yeah. And right now, just to jump into the odds before I get to you, Howard, Warlike Goddess is sitting at the co-7th choice or so at 9-1. But again, that's assuming Rebels Romance, Luxembourg, Adiyar, Al Hakim, Vedeni, Yabir, all the foreigners are the top 6. So depending on which of those come over, I know some of those aren't coming. So I think her odds are going to get a little closer. And obviously the U.S. bettors are going to bet her because she's going to be a good story. She's a U.S. horse. They've seen her run. So I think she's going to definitely float down. But Howard, what do you think of her going into the turf? Do you think it's a wise decision? You think it's her best distance, it seems? Do you think she has a good shot?
I still want them to run the Flower Bowl again so she can get up because that was ridiculous. Anyway, so I'm a bitter man, Matthew. Sorry.
You wear it well, Howard.
Warlike Goddess is really good, but for her to be like 2nd or even 3rd choice in the Turf Classic, to me seems crazy. And it's not because she's a girl. So anyone stop with that nonsense. I got no problem with her running against the boys. That race Saturday, Pete and Matthew. Boy, none of the top boys showed up at all. Gufo was absolutely awful. Soldiers Rising had trouble in the stretch. Bye Melvin, by the way. Grant Motion said, Pete, they're going to the Breeders' Cup.
He's going. I actually had that as a note because I think that's an interesting speed.
Well,
horse.
it's gonna keep the pace honest at least, which is what I like. Guys, I think I love Warlike Goddess underneath and tries. I do not like her at all on top. I suppose if she's 10-1, I'd be interested. You've got to believe some of these better Euros are better than her in general.
Yeah.
Nice story.
That's why
nice
these turf
story.
I
do not. She'd be like a C probably on my ABC, horizontal ticket as of this moment. She ran really well. She also, Matthew, had no trouble in that race. She just, it was the dream scenario, and a lot of horses didn't run. I think she's going to be a little bit overrated based on the last effort, but she's good. She's a nice horse.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Euros, Rebels Romance, the Charlie Appleby horse is probably my top pick right now. And but Luxembourg, it's funny, Pete, when you were going through that list, I was just thinking in my head, like Luxembourg strained a muscle in the arc, isn't coming over. Yep. A lot of these horses, Alpinista, State of Rest, Pile Driver, a lot of these horses that won the automatic qualifiers aren't coming over. Yeah. Adiyar's running this weekend at Royal Ascot, and so it's Ascot, I should say, is unlikely to be, coming over. So, she is probably going to end up being like the 2nd or 3rd choice. To Howard's point, and 2nd and 3rd choice, I don't love those odds, but I agree. Underneath, you could absolutely make a nice vertical ticket with her included.
Quick comment, Pete. I talked to Davy Lane today, and Matthew, you're wondering who's Davy Lane. Davy Lane is a great punter from the UK who's been on the show several times. He's a friend of mine. Okay. Their declarations are coming out very soon for the race this weekend. Mm-hmm. Keep an eye if you find out, and Davy's going to tell me. There's like about 4 or 5 horses he said that he would find very interesting if they didn't go this weekend and skipped to come here in a few weeks. So if you find out anyone, you can find this out on their websites over there. Find out horses that are skipping the British Champions stakes and coming here. The ground's supposed to be not bad there, actually, not as bad as it usually is. But I'll be waiting to hear from Davy Lane on which horses decide to come here. Because if I'm a trainer of some of these horses, I think it's for the pickings again, Matthew. I mean, all these turf races, except maybe for the mile, are very much open to Euros, don't you think?
Yeah, it's funny. When I was making notes for the show, I felt bad, but like every time I got to a turf division, I was like, yeah, this was a nice effort, but the Euros are like so much better. And so it was just like, every single time I was like, yeah, sure, that was a good race. But, and it was just, so yeah, the Euros, I mean, anybody who follows European racing, I mean, just the Euros they send over their B and C horses and they beat our A horses. And they do that regularly. I mean, we don't even get the best of them because we're not getting Baid. We're not getting, the kind of the super freaks from over there. Yeah, we're not getting Alpinista. And so we're not even getting the best. And they still come over and kick our ass. So
we got Golden Horn and he lost.
Right.
The arc winner, remember?
Yeah.
But I do think that one thing, it's hard to talk about the turf races for the Breeders' Cup, but for that reason, though, because you just don't know who's coming. So at least the dirt, we kind of have a better idea of the fields, but the turf, we have to speculate a lot. So we don't do that. But as we get closer, I'm assuming we'll have Davey on at some point, Howard, when we get close to Breeders' Cup. And there's a lot of good other places to listen to if you want to. I would listen to and watch replays of all the foreign horses once they announce who's coming over. 26
Raymond's
days
excited.
to post,
26 days, Raymond. I'm right with you, buddy.
I love it. All right, let's move to the next Breeders' Cup. We're going to move to the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. And the big boy that we saw, race 6 at Keeneland on Saturday in the Woodford, Golden Pal. Again, this wasn't a Breeders' Cup win and you're in, but obviously this is the favorite, and this is going to be the favorite. I think right now he's sitting at 2-1, which seems like a gift, Matthew. I don't know if I don't assume we're going to get him at 2-1, although there is some intrigue at the top, depending upon, again, who comes over. But what do you think of Golden Pal and his perfect, I think, 4 for 4 at Keeneland and undefeated in the U.S. on turf? So, somebody's got to beat him first before you can really be a play against, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the horse everybody loves to play against every single time out, it feels like.
I did it last year.
Yeah, everybody tries to play against Golden Pal, and Golden Pal in North America just wins. And I think that there were some legitimate reasons to question him going into this last race. The effort at the Troy last time out was not good. Didn't break cleanly, really struggled down the stretch. Was getting a little bit of a lower speed figure. Obviously, what happened over at Royal Ascot, I'm willing to draw a line through. But that effort at the Troy wasn't great. Then there was talk of maybe moving this horse to the Phoenix, actually, and running the Golden Pal on dirt. He had a couple of breaks in his training in between, the Troy and this past race at Keeneland. So there are reasons to go, is there something wrong? Does Wes Ward know something here that this horse maybe is a little off or what have you? And so I fully admit I played against Golden Pal. Now I hedged around it, but it was not as easy as a single for me. But the beauty about Golden Pal is, within the first 100 yards, whether or not this horse is going to win.
As soon as he left that gate, you ripped that ticket up, right?
Exactly. No, exactly. And so if he breaks, it's over. I mean, and I think from a competitive standpoint, I hope that a horse like Highfield Princess comes over, because I think that's the absolute best turf sprinter over in Europe. And I would love to see the competition between the two of them here at the Breeders' Cup. But yeah, Golden Pal answered any questions, set a stakes record at Keeneland. So it's just incredibly impressive.
And Highfield Princess, who you mentioned, is the 5-2 second choice right now. So from a betting standpoint, they're a little closer than you would expect, because Golden Pal usually takes so much money when he's here. Howard, thoughts on Golden Pal? Anyone else in this race? Even because I guess eventually we're going to have to think of, if he's going to be a single potentially for you, do you just look for who am I going to maybe play underneath and try and catch something, or what do you think?
He is one of the horses I would consider making a heavy kind of double or something in the B. I'm not afraid to give some BC opinions, because a lot of people are going to think the same thing. He's one of the stronger choices for me. I know Highfield Princess is good, but it's still not easy to come over from Europe. Matthew, this is, I don't know. I'm not going to ask you. I'm 51. We're probably not that far away in age, I'm guessing. I don't know. Golden Pal is the fastest horse out of the gate I think I've ever seen in my lifetime. I mean, again, forget about what happened in Ascot. That's another time, another place. Right. He's just so damn fast out of the gate. Inside, outside, middle. I mean, he knows this track. I know Highfield Princess is really good. There's no one. Who's third? I don't even know who's third choice. Do you have the futures?
Yeah, I have them up. Yeah, right now. Hey, wait. Third choice is a horse that Howard knows quite well. One timer, and we had a whole. And again, I don't know if this is gonna stick, but Matthew, we had a thing with Matt Miller. What did he win? What was he? BC champion. Okay. Howard Matt Miller picked one timer on our show. Howard said, "There's no chance that horse is winning," or whatever bold proclamation he made. And one timer came out and wires the fields, and we had a whole thing the week after, and it was fantastic, embarrassing Howard, but him being the third choice off of just that is ludicrous, and I don't assume he will be.
So Golden Pal's a very strong use for me. I do want to bring up one quick comment, Pete. We can go on to the next race.
No, please go ahead.
From Herberto Suero, Golden Pal is scheduled to go to Australia after the Breeders' Cup, and I hope that happens, and I hope that he gets out of the gate, because Matthew, that would be a complete throwdown if Golden Path actually breaks and
Yep.
faces Nature Strip. That would be, I got to be honest, probably more fun to watch than the Breeders' Cup.
Absolutely. No, totally agreed. And one of the things I will always credit Wesley Ward for doing is shipping his horses over to where the best races and the best horses are. And I have a ton of respect for that. Grand Motion does the same thing, shipping Spenderella over this past year. I just have a ton of respect for those trainers who just go, listen, the best, especially these turf trainers, the best are overseas, the best are in Australia, the best are all over the world. We have to go to them. They're not going to always come to us. So the only way we're going to get better, and it's like, to me, it reminds me a little bit. I went to a very small school for undergrad, Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina. Furman would play Clemson and South Carolina and Florida State, just get their ass kicked in football the first 3 weeks of the year. Then they go and play Samford and the Citadel. Well, this feels like AAA compared to what they were just playing. It's a lot easier. So I love that idea. Go against tougher, go against the best. You come back here to the States, competition honestly feels like AA baseball in comparison. So always have a lot of respect for those trainers.
I forgot. Dewey Fan is correct. One Timer's not going. I remember reading that a few weeks ago. I don't even think he's going. I'm 99% positive. I don't know if Matthew.
And again,
I don't think so.
Odds checker is usually doesn't always take into account the announcements. So we sort of wing it unless somebody hears something. Then great. But if we have nothing else on, apologies. We have nothing else there. Let's move.
Pete, do you want me to take? I can take over. No, I'm serious. You want me to keep?
No.
You want me to talk
good.
more? It's good.
I know you like talking, so you have no problem with that. Let's talk about the next one, the Breeders' Cup Mile. So we're going to start with Keeneland, the 10th on Saturday, the Turf Mile, won by Annapolis, 103 buyer, Breeders' Cup winning you're in. Pretty impressive performance, even though I think he did work out pretty much a god trip right there, and some of the other horses didn't fire necessarily, especially I know a couple that we picked on the show last week did not fire as we expected. But Matthew, what did you think about Annapolis' performance and sort of his progression and being only a 3-year-old, first time facing elders and sort of keeping progressing and keep running well like he did?
Yeah, this is a horse I will fully admit that I've been really off on this whole time. I've been kind of skeptical of Annapolis. I was skeptical of this horse coming into this race. The last time out was a 4-horse field up at Belmont, and I just thought, Saratoga, I should say. And I just thought, I don't know how good this horse is, but you're right. There's just been a constant progression. And, all credit to Todd Pletcher for continuing to get this horse, improve this horse every single time out. Admittedly, it was a dream trip. But you're right. The other horses didn't fire. It feels like a mile is the perfect distance for this horse. And so, and milers are funny. And somebody mentioned this, I think, on air, that horses that run a mile, they are very particular to running a mile. Unlike horses almost at any other distance, horses that are sprinters can go 5.5, 6, 6.5. They can go kind of, there's some wiggle room there. Milers, if you put them at a mile and a 16th or 7 furlongs, it's a disaster. You get them at exactly a mile, they fire beautifully. And it just feels like Annapolis is a really good miler. Ivar, Set Piece are two dead closers who I really liked in this race. I thought there'd be a little bit more pace up front. Santon broke terribly and was, just really far back. And I thought Santon would put on some more pace. Smooth Like Straight scratched. I think that also screwed up the scenario. Yeah. Why Some Like It Hot Brown was not on the lead, I have no idea. So, I mean, the pace scenario worked out well for Annapolis because there's another running of this race that had a much hotter pace up front, and a horse like Ivar or Set Piece would have had a lot more to close into.
Yeah, and I think that was sort of how we handicapped it on the show, was more of a hot pace. And I had Casa Creed, Howard had Santin, and I had Ivar in second. And then it was we were looking the exact same way. And then, of course, it doesn't shake out that way.
Where's the classic Causeway speed? I mean,
he had nothing.
What are they thinking there? Matthew, you must be a brother from another mother, because we looked at this race exactly the same. I mean, I was completely wrong. We were live on Saturday. I said it on the show. I was just wrong about this horse. I echo every sentiment you said. My handicapping mistake, Matthew, and I don't know if you feel the same way, is the intent was very much there on Saturday, and I should write into that more. It was Flavian, I think, wrote, or sorry, Irad. It was Irad, and Chad, who had enough confidence to send him in this race. I mean, if he wasn't feeling great, he would have run him in the Knickerbocker or somewhere else. I don't know. Yeah. I should have read more into the tea leaves a little bit. I know that's sort of, I'm saying after the fact, but that was my personal mistake. He did get a great trip. I'm fascinated by this horse, Matthew. If the mile comes up light on speed, this is a horse I could easily see finishing second underneath Modern Games at like a 10-1 or something. I am very interested in this horse. I love the progression. That first race this year was run in a complete bog at Penn National.
Yeah.
Remember that, like a 50
I
to 1
do.
shot
That
won
was-
that race.
yeah.
I mean, and so I was like,
wow,
you
what
last
a
time.
summer. Yeah.
I was like you last time. Like that last race was fake. It was a slow pace. It was small. Hats off. I don't have much to add. Ivar does what Ivar does. He's a nice horse. He just isn't getting there.
Hey, he finished
not too much to add in this race.
He finished third last year, so he's definitely a horse though you can find underneath, especially if he can get some speed. Obviously, Modern Games looks like the U.S. mile division has been a little suspect the whole year. They've sort of just beat each other up a little bit, so you don't know if that was just Annapolis beating a bunch of horses that are just so and inconsistent, or I think we think Modern Games when he comes over is going to be pretty tough. But again, if you could find right now, Annapolis is sitting at 10 underneath. So if you can find a horse at 10 underneath, that's beautiful. And if you can get him on top, even better. The only other race I wanted to mention, we don't have to go into it. Regal Glory, I read, is actually going to point to this race. She was a little bit disappointing in the First Lady, but she's pointing to this race instead of the filly and mare turf. Just wanted to mention it. She's sitting at around 12-1 right now. So if you think she could bounce back, then what do you think, Matthew, real quick? You think she's got a shot if she comes into this one the way, maybe not the best race that she's run?
Yeah, she's really good. I like Regal Glory a lot. The question is, I don't know where In Italian's going, but if they just keep letting In Italian walk up front, like, what are we doing? Like, it just feels like
we like the Italians on this show.
No,
Matthew. We like the Italians. Well, some of us do. Some of us do.
So, but it is one of those where, I don't know what they're doing because they did this at the Diana as well, and they just, the horse just goes up front, nobody bothers her, and boom, wires the field, and I just. All right.
Well, no one bothers her, Matthew, because half the field is Chad Brown. They don't want her to be bothered, so there's no one else to go with her.
And they haven't figured out that technical analysis can only win on the front, and she never gets the front because there's always a better Chad in the race that beats her to it, unfortunately. And I did see, so we're going to talk about her a little bit actually next, but In Italian is going to the filly and mare turf as of now. So she won't be here for the speed, so we'll get to that one actually coming up next. But any more thoughts, Matthew? You're good on that one. Are you ready to move on?
No, I'll just say I saw one of the comments that one of our listeners, Nick Feldman, made about that she set the track record in the Diana, and absolutely right that she's not running slow fractions in Italian, but nobody's contesting her, and I think that's a point to always make. There's difference between running fast. It was the same difference between Cave Rock and Loggins, right? That Cave Rock was just running fast. Nobody was pressuring him, going away. Loggins was running just as fast, but there are three horses around Loggins. Horses can't get into a rhythm when they're like that. They get more stressed out. And so there's a huge difference between a fast pace and a contested pace. And I always pay attention to that. In Italian gets a fast pace, but a completely uncontested one. That's a big difference in my eyes.
We always say that, good horses can run fast, especially alone, and still have finish at the end. Nick's Go is one for sure. Nick's Go can run fast and then still kick at the end if nobody else was contesting him. All right, let's move to the next division. So we're going to go to the aforementioned filly and mare turf. We have In Italian. So again, In Italian right now sitting at 10-1 in the filly and mare turf. She was super impressive. She's been impressive in her last two on the front end. What do you think of her, Matthew, in this race? Do you think if she is able to sort of get a lead and sort of probably dictate the pace, I guess, does she have a good shot, do you think?
A good shot. I do wonder about the distance, going 1 mile and 3/16 in the filly and mare turf. And so there's a little bit of questions there. I think a horse like Rougier who won up at Woodbine, we'll talk about in a second, has improved. There's some horses overseas, Nashua, the one John and Thaddy Gosden horse I like a lot in that division. And
that's the favorite right now at 11-4.
Okay,
so that's the top choice right now.
Yeah, but In Italian definitely has. You've seen those last two races. You've seen a big jump in the Buyers figs, and it's because this horse they kind of figured out get this horse in the front and let her go and. She's got the pedigree to do it, and she's another one a little bit like Annapolis that I've been slow to kind of come around on. But, she keeps proving me wrong every race. So all the credit.
Howard, what are your thoughts on an Italian in terms of the filly and mare turf?
I didn't have a chance. Isn't Readout's choice? Isn't that the breeding on the dam side more sprinty? Do you know, Matthew, off the top of your head? I think it is.
I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah.
Okay, I'd have to look it up. She could be dangerous, guys. This horse has turned her life around. I mean, she was always good, but I didn't think she was this good. I mean, I was shocked when she won the Diana, to be perfectly honest, and she just won well again. To me, it's very much situational. I have to see what the pace scenario is going to be. I have to see what post she gets. She probably wants it firm. Chance of it being firm at Keeneland on Breeders' Cup days probably a bit unlikely. The Nashua, the horse coming overseas, I think she's a dead closer if I recall. So if there's other speed types, she probably doesn't have a chance. Listen, she could get loose. I've seen crazier things, and of course the distance, Matthew, is a huge advantage for a horse like an Italian that they're not going a mile and 3/8. She has to get another 16th of a mile from the Diana,
right?
In the right circumstances, at maybe double, 8-10 to 1. She's interesting.
Well, and one other horse we were going to talk about quick, another Breeders' Cup winning you're in, was the Rodeo Drive at Santa Anita, race 5, going to Vegas, who actually I have a little piece of as my racehorse owner, and she's a fun horse to watch because she just gives her all every time she goes out there. She gets her butt on the lead, and she'll try and take it the route. And she tried last year in the filly and mare turf. To her detriment, she only probably lasted about a half a mile to 3/4 of a mile. But if we're talking about an Italian in speed, going to Vegas is one that doesn't have a lot of other options. And when you have a couple horses who really don't have another option, if you want to win and they have to go to the lead, do you think she could, even though she's not as fast, Matthew, you think just having her in the race could maybe make it a little more difficult for a horse like an Italian, or set it up for the closers because there'll be a little bit more speed?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the way I read it. And that's maybe why I'm a little less gung-ho on an Italian still. It's just because I know going to Vegas has one way to win, and that's to go to the lead. And I think, Rispoli gave her a great ride last time, in the Rodeo Drive. And I think he knows. Again, we go back to jockey and trainer intent. The only way for this horse to win is to get on the lead. There's going to be intent. And, now, can she run the same sort of early fractions that an Italian can win? We'll see. But there's a possibility that there's going to be more pressure and a little bit more pace, and that's going to just open things up to the closers. And that's why I'm going to be looking to those horses coming from at least mid-pack in this particular race.
Yeah, no, for sure. Howard, what are your thoughts? You think, so would you lean more towards closers if the pace scenario worked out? Where are you comfortable? We're saying in Italian, if she gets pressed, I think she's obviously going to be vulnerable, especially if you do think she has some distance limitations. But we'll have to see who's in and who those closers will be, obviously.
Guys, I don't think going to Vegas is as quick as she used to be. I don't.
No, she's not.
I think an Italian is still quite a bit faster than going to Vegas, if going to Vegas goes, which, by the way, I think would be stupid, but that's just my opinion. You're also talking about a not firm California turf course. I mean, going to Vegas would have a great chance to finish, in the bottom 3 in that race if she goes. I don't know how much going to Vegas would affect the pace, guys. To be honest, if you looked at her PPs, let's bring them back. She's been more tactical lately. I know she won the lead, but guys, that was a 48-3 to the half on a fast Santa Anita turf course. That's like a carpet right now. I mean, she used to be fast, guys, really, but I don't. And there are some red time figures. I don't know. I don't want to talk more about this course because I don't think she's a factor. But
okay,
I suppose she would affect the pace, but not as much as people think, in my opinion.
And Matthew, real quick, we'll talk about Rougier, who won the EP Taylor, beating Moira, who was the Queen's Plate winner. And actually for Rougier, I don't know if it meant anything, but I think it was her first time on LASIK, so maybe that. Because she had been mostly disappointing. She had that initial. I would have to bring up her.
Yeah, she won the Begay.
She looked great, and then everybody loved her, and she sort of spit it after that. Go ahead, Matthew. What are your thoughts on her?
Yeah, I think that this could have been a turnaround race for Rougier. That that was a nice field. Obviously, beating Moira, who was just like driving like I used to when I was 21 years old, just cutting across lanes and doing all sorts of crazy things. But that was I thought a nice field. Lamista's a nice horse. Flirting Bridges, who finished second, actually, or Flirting Bridge, I should say, nice horse as well. But Rougier, if she's able to build off of that. And she had a very troubled trip. I mean, she kind of took up in the middle of the third turn and then kind of was able to restart and kind of regain herself and go. If she can recapture some of that Begay form, yeah, I mean, I could see her maybe capturing something underneath. Do I think she's good enough to win? Probably not. But she's another intriguing horse to throw into the mix in this space.
Yeah, Howard, she hasn't popped like that big 100 buyer or anything like that. So could have this just been an aberration, and maybe she just liked the woodbine course, and maybe that long stretch too. Everything benefited her, but people thought highly of her when earlier in the year. So like Matthew said, maybe it is a turnaround. What do you think, Howard?
She's one of those weird Chad Browns that just has not progressed. I mean, her Begay was Matthew. That was like a wow. That was like a holy crap. And then she did nothing. Two of her next three starts, she was favored and was absolutely awful. Guys, the Woodbine Mile to me was weird. Like Matthew, that ride. I mean, she got checked in between horses badly and still won. So that Matthew, in my opinion, that's more of a knock on the rest of the field, in my opinion. I mean, give credit to the horse. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But she got a 96. Even if she gets to like a low 100s, that's not good enough to win this race.
No.
So I'm totally against her in the Breeders' Cup, like completely. I wouldn't even consider using her as a C. If Chad gets this horse to win that race, that'd be shocking to me. She just hasn't progressed, unless it's like completely soft and there's maybe she loves that or something. I don't know, but no, I'm totally against her. It was cool to see her win, but I'm totally against that race. Is not that strong. The one she's coming out, the EP Taylor.
Yeah.
Real quick before we move on, Nick asked about McCulloch if she runs. Any thoughts off the top of your guys' head? Matthew, any thoughts?
I really like McCulloch a lot. She's made me some money this year. So
that helps.
I like this
right?
horse quite a bit. Yeah. I think
helps.
she's really talented. I like her a lot. If she ends up going, I mean, I'd have to see how she stacks up with the rest of the field, but absolutely a live shot. So yeah.
Yeah, and Howard, do you think so? With this one again, it's going to be dependent upon the Euros. Like we think Nashua's coming over, but we don't know if any others are coming, so we don't really know the depth of the field. So again, anytime with these turf races, like we said earlier, it's a little tough to judge them this far out, just because you just don't know what the field's going to look like. Unfortunately,
yeah,
so
we got to see. We got to see what
Howard.
the field looks like. Yeah, I mean, I don't like any of the Americans really at all. In Italian, maybe on the lead, but this filly mare division's awful, which is part of the reason why I'm slightly against Warlike God. Is she's just beating up on no one until the last race when no one really showed up. So I don't know, just my opinion. That's how I feel.
Hey, if you could toss anything that's going to get bet down in the Breeders' Cup, it's a beautiful feeling, right? If you could come up with something, especially in some of these even turf races. So we had a bunch more. I know we're at the top of the hour. I don't know if you guys want to stretch it out a little bit. Do you want to sort of cut it short? I don't think there's anything huge coming up. What you want?
Can we talk a little bit about some of the? Can we talk about some of the 2-year-olds real quick?
Please.
We on our show we talked about Forte and we've already talked about the boys a little bit. Can we just touch on the juvenile girls and maybe
definitely
wrap it up with that?
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to get to the juvenile turf races, Pete, but we got time to talk about that. And no one really blowed me away. I don't know if Matthew has any. We can do a quick thought on that, but let's talk about the girls a little bit going long in the juvenile filly division. How about that?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. So we'll start with the Alcibiades at Keeneland the 9th, Wonder Wheel, who sort of just got to the lead, made a relatively easy lead, hung on for dear life and sort of just, got the win. I don't know if it was the most impressive thing I've ever seen, but that's popped an 81 buyer, which isn't that bad. Sitting right now 5-1 second choice. Matthew, any thoughts on Wonder Wheel and the race she ran, or just in general?
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest. This race, what popped out to me a little bit like when we were talking about the boys, it's actually the second place horse that really popped out to me was Chop Chop. This was a horse I liked a lot going into the race. This is a Brad Cox horse that was trying dirt for the first time, and came from the clouds and closed like a freight train coming late. And so this is a horse that's going to like more distance. This is a horse that I think is going to only get better on dirt. And, is, again, this kind of lineage of Kentucky downshippers who run really well at Keeneland. So I really like Chop Chop. Raging Sea finished fourth, got DQ'd back to, finished third, I think got DQ'd maybe back to fourth, but was a horse I also really liked in this spot. as well, and just was coming late. So I actually looked at the kind of the second and third place horses as maybe being a little bit more impressive because of, as you mentioned, Wonder Wheel kind of hanging on for dear life and and not really, and making an easy lead and not being contested too much up front.
Yeah, and Howard, one thing I did like about when you look at the chart there, I think the first, second, and third place horses most of the way around. If you look at the first, second, and third place horses finished first, third, and fourth. So the speed was basically lingering near the top, and Chop Chop still was able to come from, after a terrible trip and still come from the clouds. I think that's beneficial. And Chop Chop is sitting at 8-1 right now. Any thoughts on this race, Howard, or we'll hit one of the other ones, the Chandelier?
I did not like Wonder Wheel going into the race. I like Wonder Wheel even less coming out of the race.
Fantastic.
Even though she won. I told you, Matthew, I'm tough on these horses. Matthew, I'd love to be like the tonight's co-host and just argue with you all the time here, but I agree. I mean, I'm much more interested in the second and third choices. I think Raging Sea might be better next year. Are they? I don't know if they're going. Maybe they'll go the Damoiselle. I talked about that maybe and skip the Breeders' Cup. I don't know what the plan is there. All I can say is, can we get Prank back healthy? That's all I got to say, because this filly, this juvenile fillies is it's just a bunch of math to me right now. No disrespect to anyone. I hope Prank comes back healthy. If you don't know who that is, go watch some Saratoga videos.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have to see what this field is. This juvenile fillies division to me is toss them up in the air right now. I don't really have a strong opinion.
Well, I was going to say, one thing I like about this one is right now the favorite, Chocolate Gelato, who was actually pretty impressive. I'm sorry. I think that was that last weekend? I can't recall if that was last weekend.
She's actually really good. I apologize to Chocolate Gelato.
But right now she's a very warm 9-2, not to the chocolate, no pun intended there, but she's a warm 9-2, which makes this at least could be a fun betting race and a potential for some prices, which is something else. So the only other one I thought, so we had the Chandelier and Tell Me No Lies, who was a very funny name to read because it's very confusing, but she sort of stumbled out of the gate, still ran pretty huge. Again, I don't know if anyone else really fired in the race, and that sort of helped in Tell Me No Lies. Matthew, I don't know if you have thoughts on her or that race in general.
Yeah, she looked fine. I actually kind of liked Uncontrollable a little bit more, like how, again, kind of the second place horse, because Uncontrollable was really coming late and was making a little bit of a nice run. And so I thought that Uncontrollable was, had a nice race there at a big price at 24-1 on the tote board. And so I really like that horse. Showed some nice progression last time out, had a little bit of trouble. Now, does this horse like to hang? Maybe, 2 straight second places that were pretty close. But I think one of the takeaways from this was Justique. This was the horse that everybody was up in arms about over the 72 Beyer speed figure last time out, and she backed that up with a 66. So maybe people shouldn't have been up in arms about the 72 Beyers last time, but that was the horse everybody was just, just nothing. And she had it set up for her and just didn't do it. So
yeah, and I think though, I think you made a good point though. Where Uncontrollable, the one thing you like about her is at least she's on the improve. Another one, I think 3 races. The buyers are increasing. If you follow that and whatever it is, she just seems like she's on the improve, and she's sitting at 20-1 right now. And like we talked about, in a wide open race potentially, we'd have to see the speed. I don't know what the speed scenario will look like, because she's probably going to be coming from pretty far back. But again, you get a 20-1 plus shot underneath. That's fantastic. Howard, any thoughts on this race or in general, any of these coming out?
I was, again,
underwhelmed.
My weekend was a bit rough, Matthew. Off air, I'll tell you what happened on Sunday with the pick six. If you heard, I don't know if you heard about that or not, but anyway, let's just say it was a rough beat out of a pick six. I was wrong about Telling Me No Lie and Telling Me No Lies. Others looked a lot more interesting. Look at what she got. She got a 75. I mean, congratulations. Again, I shouldn't be so negative. I mean, I've started to own some horses now too. I mean, just the thought of having a horse like this, who's, I think, is she undefeated or right? Did she?
Yeah, she's undefeated.
Yeah. No, she's 3 for 4. She lost. Oh,
that's right. Yeah. She's won.
But whatever. She's bought for 230 OBS, so she's not exactly a cheap horse. But Peter Mill's done a great job with her. She's won 350,000. I mean, fantastic to them. If this is your Breeders' Cup filly champion, I don't know what to say. It just seemed like others didn't really show up more than she got the win. And maybe that's not really fair, Matthew, but she just, She just doesn't do much for me. I don't know.
Me either. I wasn't this West Coast. I saw somebody in the comments made this mention as well. I mean, this West Coast dirt juvenile filly division just isn't really doing much for me. So I just, it's funny, as excited as I am about the juvenile boys, the juvenile girls just this year, I'm like, it's just not a lot there to get super excited about. And what's funny is that distaff division has been the one that's been, I think, more exciting the last couple of years because of Latruska and Clariere and Malathat and some of these horses. It has been more fun to watch them because they're running consistently against each other all the time. But the juveniles right now leave a lot to be desired, I think.
Well, I think this could be a race then where you look for that one horse who maybe progresses and takes that next jump. So maybe doesn't look on paper as if they're on that same level. Yep. And maybe that, because we've seen prices in the past, Breeders' Cup, juvenile fillies. We've seen some big bombs come in there. So maybe this is another year we could catch that. So I think we're going to stop there. There's a bunch of other races. Obviously, we're going to hit all these horses and all these races as we get closer to the Breeders' Cup and once the nominations come out and all of that. So we'll be talking. And Matthew, maybe we'll bring you back on to sort of dig into it a little bit more. Howard, you got something real quick?
Well, Matthew, please talk about Trust the Profits a little bit. We really appreciate
I was going to do that next. Yep.
Yeah, sorry, Pete. I wasn't.
No, I don't care.
Yeah. Matthew, we really appreciate you coming on. I've seen your show. I enjoy it. I told you in a DM that I don't believe on these like podcasts like ourselves, like competing and being angry with each other and try. I just don't get it. We should try to spread the love and try to get as many. I hope your viewers start watching our show.
Absolutely.
I hope our viewers, start watching your show, vice versa. Talk about Trust the Profits a little bit, where they can find the show, and really how it got all started in the first place.
Yeah, so I'm relatively new to Trust the Profits. They've been going on for about a year and a half, and I just joined about 2 months ago. And so people can find me on Twitter at the handle @FailDeMenace. That's my favorite running line, and it's why my ex-wife actually used to ride horses, and the horse, she had an off-track thoroughbred, and the final racing line of his career was Fail to Menace. And so that's why when came time to pick out a Twitter handle, I thought, hey, I got one for it. And so, but if you follow me on Twitter, you'll be able to get all my content. But yeah, Trust the Profits. Listen, we like to have fun. We have different shows, different personalities. It's not the same group of people all the time. So, my job and my show is really focused on the Breeders' Cup, these win-and-you're-in races, breaking news about who's coming over, who's not coming over, etc. I'll also occasionally do shows like capping a card where I go 1 through 11, 1 through 12, and just cap every single race in the card and kind of give a winner and a long shot to play. A lot of times with stable duel intentions in mind, because you're going to need to, use those long shots if you're playing stable duel. So try to give that. And over at Trust the Profits, we just like to have fun. So you can find us on YouTube, Trust the Profits. And like I said, we have a lot of different content. We try to cover a bunch of different tracks. So we try not to just hit the same ones over and over again. So if I'm covering Keeneland, maybe somebody else is covering Santa Anita and somebody else is covering BAQ. And we kind of, try to keep things going. But couldn't agree with your comments more. I love collaborating with other people. I think there's so much content out there that's so great. You guys are doing a great job. And it's just, I would love to have you all on my show as we get closer to the Breeders' Cup as well. And again, that sort of collaboration is what helps us grow the sport and helps us grow what each of us loves doing.
Are you going to be at the Breeders' Cup, Matthew?
I will not be at the Breeders' Cup because this is also like Sarah El Badwi from Horse Racing Nation and I are good friends, and she's given me a lot of crap for this as well. And so no, I will not be, because I have 2 16-year-old Jack Russell Terriers who like to sleep and go to the bathroom all the time. And so I will not be, I will be stuck in Northern Virginia watching on TV. I looked at those Breeders' Cup prices, and while I'm making a little bit more as an administrator in higher education than I did as a professor, I'd still, I didn't save up that much for the, for the tickets. So, but it's going to be an awesome weekend. And anybody who's there, I mean, the real pull for why I would want to go is just to see Flightline in person, because I think that would be a special moment and one that we're going to be talking about for a long time.
I was actually going to ask you quick, and actually I live in Maryland, so I live right down the street from Laurel. So if you ever want to come up this way,
I'll be up there for Maryland Millions in 2 weeks.
Oh, will you? Awesome.
Yeah,
actually, I'll be in 2 weeks. I'll be in Disney, so I will be missing Maryland Millions. But I think I'm going there I might go there Breeders' Cup Saturday, actually.
That'd be fun.
I haven't been there since COVID started, I think. So the one thing I was going to ask you before we wrap up, obviously Flightline, is there any horse aside maybe from Flightline that you're excited to see in the Breeders' Cup, either a horse or just a race in general that you're really excited about?
I'll give you a horse, and it's the horse that I think some of us are excited about, Tyler's Tribe.
Yes.
I'm excited for the 2-year-old coming out of Prairie Meadows. I want to see this big strapping 2-year-old from the middle of the country run up against the best. I love the story. I don't know if they're going to run him in the sprint. I don't know if they're going to run him in the juvenile. There's more and more, buzz that he's going to potentially get pointed to the juvenile. But I'm excited for this horse. It's just an underdog story a little bit, a small track, secondary track horse that could run big and against the big boys. And, Howard brought up, what horses are bought for and that sort of thing and what they win. And undefeated at Prairie Meadows, 5 for 5 in stakes races and just blows people out. I mean, I love everything about this horse. Reminds me a little bit of like Robert Redford in The Natural, just this big strapping middle American guy who's going to go and kind of set the world on fire. So that's the horse I'm really excited to see.
Sort of like you, Howard, middle America, big strapping guy, setting the world on fire. I mean, he's describing
point
you
number
to a
1,
T.
yes. Points 2 and 3, no. By the way, do you guys know how Tyler's Tribe got his name?
No,
I don't.
It's a fascinating story. We got 1 more minute.
Yeah,
it's actually a great story. The owner has a grandson whose name is Tyler. Unfortunately, he has leukemia. He is doing better. Just want to let that. I heard about this on Steve Bick and other places. So the grandson is doing better. Looks like he's going to be okay. But Tyler, his grandson's sort of support system, all the people that love him and care about him are called Tyler's Tribe. That's how he got his name.
That
makes it even
how
better.
cool would it be to see Tyler's Tribe and Cave Rock battling it out like on the backstretch? I mean, isn't that what we want? Forget the damn juvenile sprint. Just go to the juvenile.
Go to the
and have
juvenile.
some fun, right, Matthew?
Yeah.
What a great story. Baffert
think so.
versus like an Iowa bred. I mean, how awesome would that be, right?
No, it would be. And the thing is, even in the juvenile turf, if if the one juvenile filly comes over from overseas, that race is locked up because she's a monster. I'm now blanking on her name.
She just wanted an ascot. She wanted an ascot, right?
Yeah,
that
the
one.
Platinum Queen. Yeah.
Yeah.
If she comes over, I mean, she just beat the older boys, and so
Yeah.
if
she gets out of the gate.
Yeah, if she gets out of the gate. So that's why I'm kind of hoping that maybe they go to the juvenile. And like you said, Baffert versus the Iowa bred. Go for it. Why not?
Yeah. I didn't know that was even like talked about. I thought she was definitely going to the sprint.
Yeah, they just interviewed Kylie Jordan, the jockey, the other day, and she was saying, she goes, well, the ownership group is still deciding between the two. So it seems like there's more momentum about going towards the juvenile now. So we'll see.
Awesome. All right. I think that about wraps it up. So for everyone watching right now, again, we always say this. If you're watching on YouTube, definitely subscribe, hit that notification bell, and give the like. And then Thursday coming up, 8:00. It's scrolling very slowly by on the bottom, but Thursday show, 8:00 live. We're going to have Ed DeRosa on from Horse Racing Nation. And I think we're going to cover, is it the late pick 4 only instead of pick 5 this week? Or did you say pick 5?
Late pick 5 at Keeneland with featuring the QE2 with McCulloch.
Oh, yeah,
yes,
that's right.
With McCulloch, who's supposed to go. So we'll see how she runs in it. So make sure you show up for that one. Again, for myself, Pete Visco, for my co-host, Howard Kravitz, and for Matthew, what is it? Midnight Maddie.
Midnight Maddie.
DeSantis from Trust the Profits. Definitely check out his show as well and all his shows. Check out our shows. Thanks again. Episode 190 of the HHH Racing Podcast is in the books. See you later, everybody.
Good night, everyone.